Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's football show here on STV. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Rankin blasts the Nando generation. Gordon urges Celtic to get Armstrong on a new deal. And the video referee is all set to change football forever. Lots to talk about. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin. Our bookroom guest is broadcaster Archie MacPherson. So let's get into the meat and bones of it. Looking at the morning papers, Record and The Sun focus on, of course, Stuart Armstrong. After a good debut at international level, Craig Gordon will hear from later on, talking about the need to get him on a longer deal. Neil Lennon, win against Morton, and it's in the bag. And of course, Malky Mackay. Just a little word of warning to Billy Gilmore, the hot prospect at Rangers who could be on his way to Chelsea. Might be an idea to stick with Rangers rather than blow it on an early move to the Premier League. So that's just a few of the headlines we will be discussing as well. And one in particular I think will dominate most of the back pages tomorrow. John Rankin, the PFA chairman, has had a blast at this generation of footballers, saying some of them seem more interested in going to the cinema and Nando's rather than going to put in extra work on their physicality. It's an interesting shot from John. Archie.
Well, it's a change when football, in any sense, either an official of the SFA, the SFL, or a player of the Players' Union, thinking about the society that we live in. In the past, far too often in the past, and I'm sure Alan would agree with me, it was just about football and nothing else. They didn't think about the influences, the pressures, the kind of catalysts that make you a footballer or don't make you a footballer. Now they're beginning to think of that. And of course it's true. I was reading in a magazine the other day about you won't give a 5-year-old a fag to smoke, but you'll give him an iPad. And some people think that's just is injurious because it's taking their minds off other things. It transfixes their mind. It narrows their mind. Okay, the iPad can take you a journey around the world, but it's the iPad that's doing it for you. So it's right for Rankin to look at these what I think are noxious influences on youth. Because what it is also doing, it's making life soft for them. In the past, and Alan knows it better than I do, when you played football in the Glower and the ash pitches and so on, you got hardened. Walter Smith told me the difference between his generation and his kids. His kids play badminton, squash, and do sporty things, rightly enough. They don't play football from morning till night. Yeah. So if we're thinking about a future generation, then it is right, one, for society, not just football, for society to think, what kind of generation are we breeding here? Insular, not looking outward. We want our children to be intelligent and therefore use modern devices and so on. But when it absolutely obsesses them, it's a danger.
Well, I would counter it, Ruffy, by saying, and I think Archie would concede and John Rankin concedes, it's not a scattergun and just a blanket approach to everyone. There are people that are the exceptions in sport. Andy Murray is the classic case in point. I mean, Malky Mackay has mentioned that, you know, they've got to take a different attitude to it. They've got to work on their diet, work on their body fat, work on their muscle strength, everything to try and build them up into athletes, to be as quick to run like the Icelanders, but also to work on the technical ability. Their bad foot, if it's not up to a standard, go away and put in the hours of training.
Yeah, I think now that if the modern day young footballer doesn't grasp everything you're saying, then he's not going to make it, because now the footballers are athletes. You know, you can see, you know, when they're even in their strips, you can see they look fantastic, they're looking after their body. So I think anybody who isn't, you know, is a fool to themselves, you know. But I think maybe it's because the times have moved on. We keep hearing about coaches can't shout at young players, they can't do the things that probably happened to us when we were young, you know, because I mean, if you hear the Celtic boys' stories about Jock Stein could tell you where you were on a Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night, you know, and that was in the back of your mind that you better not be in a Nando's, or you better not be there because they found out, and you get dealt with accordingly on the Monday morning. I think maybe times have moved on. The strict regime isn't the way it was, you know, so I think it's up to the individual person who has been fortunate enough to be lucky enough to get to a professional club, and it's up to him, you know, to make sure that he obeys the rules that are there in order.
Archie, I'm not so sure that young players or players don't get blasted. I do think there's a regime. What I think maybe is lacking is the fact that some players have to adopt what John Rankin's talking about.
Yeah,
they have to make those extra sacrifices.
Sure. Well, you're talking about Jock Stein, of course. He was a disciplinarian within that stadium, and yes, he did know about Jinky Johnson having a drink in a pub in Ardington at 7:32 on a Friday night and so on. He did have that ability to do that. But I think we're talking about something more here. We're talking about education. We're talking about instilling, as Alan has suggested, the modern idea of simply keeping fit. No matter whether you play football, an indifferent or a brilliant footballer, simply keep fit. Be an athlete. Above all, be an athlete. So in that sense, you've got to educate yourself. Good diet, good attitude, understand what people are trying to tell you, particularly coaches and so on. So it's really basic. It gets back to something so fundamental. It's about educating ourselves as to what is best for us.
Yeah, okay. I just look at the three of us and I'm just wondering, okay, I'm going to have to put in a bit of extra work here. I wonder if it's just too late for me, but we'll come back to that subject because I think it's going to be something that a number of players will offer their opinion on over the next couple of days. One player has been speaking, Craig Gordon, the Celtic goalkeeper and Scotland international, has been talking about the performance of Stuart Armstrong. Now, here's a young man that was tipped for great things at Dundee United, has taken a while at Celtic, but suddenly he didn't look out of place on the international stage, and Craig Gordon believes Celtic have to do everything in their power to try and get him on an extended deal before some clubs come calling.
He was outstanding. He was the same whole week in training. He was one of the best players in training, scoring goals. He's a real threat from that area, both with goals and assists. So when you've got a player like that on top form, it's just great to see him playing that well. Having come into the Celtic team, he wasn't a regular at the start of the season, and since he's come in, he had a wee injury a few weeks back, but he's just come back even stronger. And to put in a performance like that in an international game for your first cap, it really just shows how good a player he actually is. And I'm looking forward to him scoring a few more assists before the end of the season.
Were you surprised by him, Archie?
No, I've been watching him since his Dundee United games. One of the ways you can define a really class player is making it appear effortless at times. He's easy on the ball. He moves smoothly, he's elegant, but he's got a great shot, as we know from the goals he scored for Celtic this season, and the way he can pop up almost from any position and have a go at goal. And he has an awareness about him. Can I say this? Let's not get carried away too much at the moment. Slovenia are not a bad team, but they're not a brilliant team. Remember, when we played them previously, was it Slovenia or Slovakia? Slovakia we played, who certainly I think are inferior to Slovenia. So you still, much as I want to see stars emerging, we've got to be very careful, keep our feet on the ground and not put too much pressure on him, but he's certainly got great potential. Well, he's realising his potential now, as you say, that we've always known he's had.
Yeah, Craig Gordon also well aware that Armstrong will be looking to play his part on Sunday at Tynecastle. The Celtic goalkeeper says he used to dream of winning a title at Tynecastle, but maybe not in a Celtic jersey.
I mean, I don't mind proving it. I don't mind if it's the day before when Aberdeen play, but we want to go and win it at the earliest possible opportunity. We've put ourselves in a great place to do that already at this stage of the season. There's still quite a few games to go, so it makes no difference where we win it. I just want to get it done as soon as possible, and we can concentrate on and trying to add the Scottish Cup to that as well.
It's a strange career. Craig started off for 7 years at Hearts, and all his mates will be in the Hearts end. But again, you're a professional. He's got a job to do, and I think well pleased that Celtic gave him another chance to kickstart that career.
Yeah, just like we were talking about earlier there, he is the inspiration if there's any young players who think they're struggling a wee bit to latch on to the attitude and the determination that he's had to get himself back to where he was. And It's fantastic.
Yeah, okay. Coming up in the next part of the programme, we'll hear from a Dundee United fan on that win last night, and of course the future at Tannadice. We'll also talk about video refereeing. Are our pub arguments over? And with the World Cup in mind, here's a wee question for you. I'm delighted you got that, Ruffy, because you've been through a bad run there. After Archie steered you towards it, finally you get it over the line.
Yeah, it was a super goal as well. It's amazing that he's went out of the picture a wee bit now. We all thought he was going to kick on and be another massive star, but he's still a quality player.
Yep, and scoring in the World Cup, and of course scoring in any major competition, there's always a few flashpoints, a few controversial points, but Archie, I'm really worried because I think we're going to get to a situation where fans go to the pub and don't argue with each other anymore because last night's France 0 Spain 2 highlighted the fact that FIFA have embraced video refereeing. It's the evolution of football, and Antoine Griezmann had a goal ruled offside by the video referee, and Gerard Deulofeu had his goal called onside after some video refereeing.
Sure,
so it changes, I think, the whole outlook of football.
Yeah, I can take you back to the mid-90s when I was working in Europe at that particular time, and TF1, the major French channel, was doing a friendly France against Sweden from the Parc des Princes. And the Eurosport got latched into that, and they were perfectly prepared. They put monitors on either side of the halfway line and 2 on either side of the goal. And then they asked the SFA, the French FA, if that was all right. And on the morning of the game, when everything had been set up, FIFA stepped in and said, no, not just even an experimentation with us. So it showed you that the dinosaurs in there were holding back progress, because I think they felt if you give anything to modern technology, you're taking away from the people who are supposed to run the game, us and the referees. And consequently, Blatter, being the principal dinosaur, is gone, and maybe that's created a new climate. I'm for it. I'm absolutely for it. I know it'll stop the quizzes in the pub or the arguments in the pubs. I do realise that, but every other sport's doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the changes that have taken place in cricket, for example. They play in pyjamas under floodlights, and they can stop it. Look at rugby; they can stop the game. Have you been watching rugby? Occasionally, I watch it. They can stop the game for 5 or 6 minutes until they work out if the ball has been touched down in a ruck on the goal line. So I'm absolutely for it, because it means that football is being consistent with technological change.
Yeah, I am all for it as well, Ruffy, because Archie and myself have worked in television, know the background to how quickly a referee can get a look at that shot again from the particular camera. I think it will sort out a lot of the evils of the game. I think the only thing left after that, I would suggest, video refereeing will come in at the top flight in most of the world. After that, I think they will stop the clock. I think they will eventually get to a point where they say, well, listen, to get away from everybody trying to cheat on the time, we'll stop the clock when the ball's not in play.
Yeah, and I think we'd all agree that'd be a good thing as well. You know, I think last night it was 40 seconds it took them to decide, what was the right result. And if we hear the players and the managers after games, that's their main complaint. Get the big decisions right, the ones, that win you a cup or win you a game. But I think it's all stemmed for the Terry Henry one. Because they lost a lot of money through that.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 million. The Irish FA, maybe it softened the blow, but not quite as much for the Irish fans who wanted to go to a major tournament. Arguments will rage on at Peter and Ruffy if you want to give us your thoughts on that on Twitter as well. Let's switch our attention to Dundee United, as you can see by the Courier's back page. Certainly happy United players after that 2-1 win over Ayr United last night, puts them still in the mix for the second place. We're joined by a Dundee United fan. He's actually part of Chairman Wee Jim's Tangerine Army. It's an affiliate of the United supporters, Mike Barilli. Mike, you confident those boys can finish second in the championship?
So I think over the season there's been a real dip in form lately since over the Christmas period, and I think events off the field haven't helped that. I think there's been too many distractions, and I think Raymond's now focused on what he needs to do.
What do you make of the financial figures, Mike? Because I know a number of United fans will be looking on and seeing the half-year accounts. It's 1.55 million in the red. And then over and above that, suddenly Stephen Thompson, the chairman, comes out and says he's looking for an initial investment from an American businessman who obviously has Scottish links and has a Scottish heritage for about £300,000.
Yeah, United fans have been very concerned for a few years now about debt. At one time we were over, there was £7 million. People say it's spiralling out of control, but it's actually a lot lower now than it was before, simply because we've sold players.
Well, here's a double-barrel question on this. If the chairman is looking, I know at times he's been looking to sell the club on, he's got initial investment, he's looking for the fans to get behind the manager. One of the things he said that totally bemused me in the last couple of days, Mike, he said that he wouldn't be viewing Ray as a failure if he didn't get Dundee United out of that division. Is that fair comment when you consider United spending power against the likes of Falkirk and a Morton?
Yeah, I think when you compare us with Falkirk and Morton, it's just not good enough. Certainly because of the attendances we can get in the setup. We should be, in theory, coping comfortably with them. But one of the words you used there was significant investment. That 300,000 isn't an investment, it's a loan. And that's the concern. I'd be quite happy if it was genuine investment in the club, but it doesn't appear to be investment, it appears to be a loan.
What about the board now and Stephen Thompson? Do you think again is there a confidence that he's steering the club in the right direction? Would you like to see Stephen maybe look for the keyword investment and maybe power sharing with someone who's going to come in and take United on? Because there's no doubt when you're losing money like that, you need money to take you forward.
Yeah, we need someone to come in, and above all, the fans need to stay united. There's too many splinter groups being formed. And I don't think that's healthy. It makes it easier for Stephen Thompson to ride through the storm while the fans are all divided. I think it's essential that the supporters work together. There's a vehicle already there. The Arab Trust has got a foot in the boardroom with an associate director. It doesn't have as much influence as the other directors, unfortunately. But if the fans stick together, they would certainly have a lot of influence, and they would be able to work together with a proper investor. There's at least 2 or 3 people who have got the money, the financial wherewithal, but they're not going to give it to Stephen Thompson lightly. They're going to wait until the price drops, and it's a waiting game all round. But it's a dangerous waiting game.
Like ominous words there. I have to thank you for joining us on the programme, and fingers crossed your dream comes true. You do indeed finish second and hopefully back in the Premiership next season. Thanks for joining us.
Good. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike Barilli there talking about Dundee United. Archie, I'd love to see them back in the Premiership, but quite simply, even Stephen Thompson saying, yeah, somebody can come in and buy it, but there's no viable offers.
Stephen Thompson. My. We've already had on this programme praise for an outstanding player called Armstrong. Where was he? Dundee United. Where were the other 2 that went with him? The core of the team, the heart of the team was taken out. No chance after that. And so they're living the legacy of that. A legacy that's going to be with them, and I think making them into a situation which they might find very difficult to extricate themselves from. Not just in terms of finances, but getting out that league. Because even if they do finish second, they've got to face up to the possibility of a playoff. And the playoffs are weighed in favour of any Premier Division club, as Rangers proved when they tried to get through the playoffs a couple of seasons ago. So it's going to be very difficult for themselves, but they've heaped this upon themselves, Stephen Thompson in particular.
Yeah, okay. Got to get your thoughts, guys, on a game I'm going to nip along to tonight at Easter Road. Hibs against Morton. let's be brief on it. Ruffy, how do you see this one going?
I think Neil Lennon have the players up for this one. I think they all know how important it is if they get a win here. It's practically done and dusted, so I think you'll find a strong side getting put out there tonight, but we know Morton will put up a good show as well.
Archie?
Well, I was there on Saturday watching the game as a guest of Martin Riley, who's Neil Lennon's agent, and it was great to watch them. Especially that final goal, that really made the day. That was a brilliant goal. But there's still flaws in the team, and it's not going to be easy.
Okay. Are they going to win?
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. Absolutely magnificent stuff from Archie as ever. Join us tomorrow on the programme when Jim Goodwin will be our Bit Room guest. Good night.